Well, hello! In part 1 of the DIatone GT-90 review, we had issues mainly to do with the fact that the receiver I was using, the FreeSky XM, had very bad range and dropped out the sky quickly. There were also a couple of bits I didn't like on the quad, like, well, mainly the props, which seems to be common with all Diatone things. So what I've done here is I've replaced the receiver and replaced the props. So let's pick things up from there. And here it is, ready to go again. Not much difference there. Obviously the XM's come out, the XM Plus has come in with its two antennas, kind of at a 90-degree-ish angle. Slightly bigger the XM Plus, but an easy fit there. Also notice you could go into the camera with an OSD cable, and you'd probably be confronted by some Chinese text like this one. If this is the case, just go down to this one and swap it to English. But I found out that WDR was on and night mode was set to colour, which is how I like to do it. The Gemfan 2035s are on. Now what we needed was a slightly different little screw for that, as I mentioned before. So there's not much difference in these, especially on an out of focus camera, but this is 6mm long, the one for these ones. The one that fit the Gemfan 2035s, 7mm long, so not much in it, and they're both M2s. Unfortunately I had a bunch of these around. If you don't, I find the place to get little tiny packs of screws from like this is eBay. People seem to be able to do sort of 10 or 20 of these individual screw links for pretty cheap. The only thing I didn't do, which I quite wanted to do, is get rid of this strap here. In the box there are a couple of these kind of elastic band things that go around there, but you have to take the motors out to slide it on, and then takes this out to get it through. And I was going to do it, but my screwdriver was just starting to strip these screws, and I thought, well, it's not worth this hassle really. We'll see how it is with this. We can always come back to that one, but the main thing is to check it flies reasonably, and as long as the battery doesn't move around, that's alright. I'll see if I can get that nice and tight. But anyway, to the field we go. So here I go, all batteried up and ready to take off, and off I go. Now have a look at the Rssi again. It's already dropped to 50%. I was like, hang on, what was that? I said, thinking it just went to 0, I've got a problem, and it's gone to 0 again, and I'm down. Now take a look here, because I've got perfectly good video, 0 Rssi. Now this was a problem because it meant I couldn't sound my beeper. The beeper, if you remember from last time, is done with the D-shot commands, but in order to make that happen, it has to be arranged to do it. The lost model alarm, or the failsafe beeper, doesn't use the D-shot command. I think this is coming in on 3.3, but on 3.2 I basically had to wander around until I got close enough that the radio would reconnect and it would eventually sound it, which was very close. So okay, that's weird. I got less range on this XM Plus than this XM. So I've already stripped it down just to see if I could see any problems. I thought perhaps one of these UFL connectors on the antenna came out, which would really reduce the range heavily, but they look okay. There's a little bit of a it's not quite a kink, but you can feel it's been sort of a bit bent there. And what I did to test this out, I walked downstairs with it and the Rssi reduced to 50%, and I did the same thing with another quad with an XM on it, and that reduced to just like it was in the 90%. I also stuck this inside a microwave and closed the door just to see what would happen. This went to 0, this went to 50. So clearly there's something up with this. Either, I mean, the solder connections look okay here and there, so I think probably the easiest thing I can do to try and sort out the problem is I've got my last XM Plus here, some more in order. These, I go through these like anybody's business. I'll try soldering that in and see if I get a difference. It could just be that this is a dud, it could be something else on the quads doing it, so let's solder that in first and see what happens. Okay, weirdness abounds. So I tried putting the other FreeSky XM Plus, brand new one, on there. Got the same issue, range exactly the same, Rssi dropped just walking downstairs. And I was starting to think I had a duff little flight controller. I did have a quick chat to Oscar Lang on Facebook about this, who said he had a failed Diatone flight controller before, and I started thinking it must be that, but before I did that, what I did is I needed to use a known working one, so I took the one I had off the Diatone Tyrant S, which was fine, and I hooked it into this. And once you know, this was then fine and proper range. Walking downstairs was good. So I took the dodgy one that had a problem, put it on the Tyrant, and the Tyrant experienced the RSSI issue. So somehow I've had 2 dodgy FrSky XM Pluses in a row, which is pretty unprecedented. I've never had a problem with any of them before, and now suddenly I get 2 all at once. Hopefully it's a freak thing. If you had any, and I actually purchased these in November, I tracked it back. I'd be interested to know if there was some sort of bad batch or something, or I was just really unlucky. Anyway, this should be good to fly now, and I did one extra thing, which is to put the rubber band thing on here, because I just thought, oh, screw it, I'll take it all apart anyway, which was a pain. And even worse to put back together, actually. So I don't necessarily recommend it, but I didn't like that battery strap. Let's go try and fly it properly, finally. Let's see how it goes. Well, I was starting to think I was jinxed with this quad, but I took it down again, I launched it, and I looked very hard at the RSSI as I was flying away, and it all came good. And instantly I saw, since the first time I flew it, it's a lot smoother. Those props it ships with, not very good. Big, inefficient, and a bit lumpy in the air. This is much better. These have been my favourite, the Gemfan 2035s. And the quad is flying really nicely. It's got its stock settings. It seems to have plenty of power. And quite nippy. I'm using the little EA Sheen 450 3S, one of the few decent 3S batteries I got, which is small enough and has an XT30 connector. I really need to get some more batteries. Other things I picked up, that damn voltage is still flashing. I checked that to see where the alarm stuff was, and it shouldn't be happening. And I still don't quite know what's going on with that, so I'll have to sort it. Very, very weird. Other than that, the picture we're getting is fairly good. We're getting some breakup with the VTX here. This is obviously the TVS running 25 milliwatts. It's got the little dipole, which is at an angle that really does create a bit of a null most of the time, it would seem. But despite that, it does okay, and I'm pretty happy with the camera. Of course, you can always get overconfident, and it doesn't help you if you just go into bushes like that. Now, I thought I was in short grass here, but having got there and sounding my beeper, I was deep in. I could barely see this little LED by the time I got it. So that was pretty good. So what I did next is I swapped over to the smaller 350 milliamp hour battery, and I just wanted to make sure I could fly this bit. You know, I don't want to be intimidated by it. It was just a piece of thin bush that you just don't see, basically. What I picked up by running this smaller 350 battery, which is just a little bit lighter, is it really likes a lightweight battery. I mean, it's a bit of a problem, of course, because a lightweight battery is generally less milliamp hours and might be less C. This thing can suck the power up when you go full throttle. It will stress your battery quite heavily when you really put the power on. But the lighter you can go, the more performance you can get out of this, is what I really picked up on this. So the initial battery was actually a 550, not a 450. But that's, I think, the upper limit. I think the sweet spot is probably about a 400, 450 to get the right combination of sort of power and weight performance. But yeah, I mean, I came into this thinking, oh no, we're going to have to try and fly this quad again. What's going to go wrong now? And pretty soon I was like, yep, this is fantastic. I'm really enjoying this. It does it all. It's only a little tiny 90mm quad with 2-inch props, and it's ripping around the field like a good one, and just doing what I wanted to do. You've got loads of time in the air to, you know, flip upside down and float away and do what you like. It's very agile with this smaller battery, so you've got loads of hang time if you need it, and of course loads of power. Well, that's going quite nice, isn't it? And despite me breaking my antenna holder there and me having to tuck the other one in the battery strap, we're getting good range. So what I've also got is these Hulky props that I've yet to try, and a couple of people suggested these over the Gemfan 2035, so let's put them on and see how it goes. Well, they look the business, don't they? Just as soon as my fingers aren't numb anymore, I'll fly and see how it feels. So here we go, and we've got the Hulkies on board, and if I'm perfectly honest, I didn't pick up any differences whatsoever. They flew very well with the Gemfan 2035s, it's flying very well with these Hulkies, both made by Gemfan, of course.
I think the idea of the hole keys, are they supposed to be slightly more efficient? A sort of slightly wider three-bladed prop instead of a narrower four-blade. You know, does it balance out or what? Again, I couldn't put enough batteries through because I ran out of batteries to work out if I was getting any significant differences here. But, you know, good props. I'd certainly recommend them. I don't know if I'd recommend them over the 2035s. If you can get hold of either, I think, you know, you'll be doing good. And this quad is just, I'm really starting to enjoy it now. I just basically playing around, doing whatever I like, and just being able to really rip it into corners, get it up in the air really quickly, and just spin it around on a dime, really, just doing whatever I liked. I mean, that is really the definition of what these 2-inch micros are for, just really getting out there and having a blast in any space you can get. Now, I noticed here that my battery was running low, and I thought, oh, I'd better get in because that's starting to dip into the low tens now just on a normal flight. So I was quite surprised. This isn't anything to do with the quad, this is more about how the battery is. As I'm coming in here, I was surprised to see just how quickly this battery dipped, and it really fell fast. Once it gets past a certain point, it's like goodbye. It's just going down to nothing. I was lining myself up for a landing, and have a look at this voltage. It just goes like a stone, 8, 7, 6, and we can't even stay in the air anymore. So yeah, that battery's probably knackered now.
Well, it took its time, but now it's flying well. I'm really pleased with it. I think we've got my favourite 2-inch quad here. Mainly because it's 3S, it's got a decent camera, it's got a lot of punch and power. There's not much that's wrong with it. Okay, if you want the niggles, as I often like to point out any potential problems I can see, they are thus. Obviously, the stock prop, the DIatone thing to do is to give rubbish props. These are terrible, get rid of them. The hole keys that are still in there at the moment, very good. The 2035s, also very good. The other things to note here is the battery strap is rubbish, and to get the elastic one on was horrendous to take all that stuff out and do it. I'd still like a better battery strap that I could put tied to there. But the other thing is, if you do need to change over the receiver and do some soldering here, this is pretty fine work. If you need to change over to, for example, if you're on Spectrum and you've got like DSM2 or DSMX, something like that, there is a jumper to solder between 5 volts and 3.3, and it is quite fine work. It's you know, it's not, you know, micro soldering, but it's steady hand and thin point soldering to do it. And of course, I wish it had a proper beeper on it somewhere. I mean, I'm not worried about the LEDs, and you know, I could get one to fit it in there, but really it should have one. But if we get the fail-safe D-shot beeping, that, you know, that'll go some way of solving it. Aside from that, it's really hard to fault. It flies really, really well. Now, the big thing on this quad was the fact it would take a 4S battery. Now, I haven't used a 4S battery, and that's because I think weight is really crucial on here. The two batteries I was using, this Eachine 550, I still think is maybe a little bit past its best, and the 350 worked really well, but of course not so long. I got about 2.5 minutes out of the 350 and about 3.5 out of the 550. So I think something like a 400 or maybe 450 will give you about 3 minutes of really good flight. And again, if you go up and put a 4-cell on, then you need to go a lower capacity, because that is just going to increase the size. I haven't really seen any videos of people, I've seen people flying on a 4S, but I haven't really seen any really convincing footage say this should be on 4S, this is why. I mean, it's pretty powerful on a 3S, especially when you lighten the load. And by putting that extra cell in, you know, it's just counterproductive. You give power, but you take away your agility. So it works good for 3S for me. I really like it. The FreeSky receivers, I've chatted to support at FreeSky through email, and they've asked me if I'd send both those receivers to them to take a look at, which I'll do, because I'm really interested to know if there's something I could have identified on those receivers to work out what the problem is, or if there's a problem. So I'll double check with them that they'll be able to tell me that, rather than just say, oh yeah, they're faulty, because I can tell you that. And obviously I'll report back if I hear anything. Meantime, I'm going to fly this some more when I can, because it's only small and it's easy to take places. But I should thank Banggood once again for sending this, and of course their links down below, along with the links to these props I use, in case you find them interesting. Jury's still out on which I think is better. I think both the Hulkies and the 2035s look really good. As these are on, I couldn't be bothered to take them off again. I'll carry on using these and see if I can discern some sort of difference. And I really must get some more batteries. But anyway, there it is. Part 2. Get there in the end and we got to fly it. And it flies nicely. I really like it. I will catch you in the next video. Bye for now.